Well, we're being joined this morning by some superintendents from around the area to discuss school safety in this crisis in the classroom roundtable discussion this morning. I'm Dylan Cleveland of WTOV 9. I'm joined by T.C. Chapelier from Indian Creek, Bill Beatty from Edison, and we're also joined by Scott Celestin from Buckeye Local and Duran Morgan of the Harrison Hills School District. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning to talk about some very important topics. Let's get into it with starting to just kind of get everyone's reaction. We've seen a large amount of mass shootings, both across the country, regionally, but also in our schools. Who would like to just kind of chime in, talk about that reaction to continuing to see this issue?
I'll take a second. I mean, I think I've had this conversation before, and obviously it's always a concern, when you see this on TV and things happening, and I guess your hope is that it never happens to you, but you always have to be prepared just in case if it does. And I think that's kind of where, the safety protocols and the things that we've put into play in our school district will someday, if something drastic like that does happen, will afford us opportunity to be prepared to deal with the situation if it does occur.
Yeah, I agree. I think from our perspective, it's important to pay attention to trends, national trends, and then prepare. So in planning and providing opportunities for our staff to pay attention and have the opportunity to discuss is certainly our focus.
And you brought up a good point. There's a lot that can be learned from these. What are some of the things that maybe your districts have picked up on from seeing the response to some of these tragic events? If you had to maybe pick a strategy or a tool that maybe each of you have seen or implemented that you've learned from a previous situation, what would those be?
Hate to show your hand, but I mean, obviously, the situation that, we really emphasize a lot to our building principals and to our teachers and to all our staff about blocking doors open and making sure that doors are closed. And the other piece is, I think it was in Parkland, Florida. I mean, they pulled a fire alarm. And that's what got everybody out into the hallways when that happened. So we put protocols in place for our staff and students to know that you follow, when the fire alarm goes off, you follow this protocol, which determines that it's either an actual fire drill or if it's somebody that just pulled the fire alarm without everybody knowing. So to try to avoid those types of situations where you're going to get mass number of people into a hallway to accomplish your goal.
at Harrison Hills, we're certainly blessed with a new facility. Doors ajar are a problem. What we're able to do with the new facility is monitor every door that we have electronically. So anytime any of our doors are ajar, we can set the time limit. So we have it down to seconds. So after a door is open for so many seconds, we're alerted. Our security is alerted, our school resource officers, administration, and we address it as the alerts come. So the benefits of a new building, and certainly blessed by our parents and community and passing our levy to build the building, but a feature that's top-notch in security.
So we will continue on now, and we will continue talking about some of the safety measures that we're seeing being implemented across the country, and then maybe if you want to talk a little bit about what the efforts you guys have tried to make. There's a variety of things from cameras that can go directly to law enforcement to resource officers and increased resource officers, and then there's also trainings and things like that. So if everyone wants to kind of touch on what they're doing when it comes to protocols and strategies.
Sure. At Harrison, so from the camera perspective and security footage, so with a new campus and new facilities, our camera coverage is really comprehensive. So it's helpful in making sure that our campus is safe and our students are safe, and ensuring our parents that there's a level of safety there. So to your point, in having law enforcement have access to cameras, that's something that we employ at Harrison Hills also. So there's an additional layer of security in the event that something alarming would happen. They have access remotely to be able to see what area the school might have the problem, or address the situation in any way. So certainly we are glad we have those benefits at Harrison Hills.
How's the response from parents and students been to some of these strategies? Do they feel that things are being done and it's working, or are students maybe feeling a little bit less fearful to come into a school? What's kind of been the reaction?
So speaking of the ALICE drills, part of the ALICE drill that you have is the evacuation piece of it, and actually one of our buildings was doing the evacuation, and one component of that is if you have to evacuate from the building, we have reunification points that our kids will go to as a meet point if there's ever a situation that occurs. So over the next couple of weeks in all three of our buildings, they'll be doing the reunification drills. And in the past when we've done it, we've had parents that have actually participated to come, so give us the opportunity to be able to practice the fact of, if you're ever in a situation that there is an active shooter or something happens, to give our staff, our kids, and the parents the opportunity to learn what it actually looks like for them to be able to pick their child up in a situation if something like that were to happen. So I mean, I think as practical as you can get in what you're doing is probably is the most important thing. And if you don't practice it, you're not going to know how to do it. So, I think it's been received well. The one piece that, I'll say, and I know we're not the only ones that are doing it, but, like our Board of Education made the commitment to have concealed carry staff in our building. And it's huge for us, I think, in our school district specifically, just because of the fact of, we don't know what the response time is going to be for somebody, first responders, law enforcement, whoever, to get to our building. So I think, there's not been one pushback from anybody, that we have people in our buildings that are actually carrying weapons, and it's the reason they're carrying them is to protect their children.
With that being said, you brought up relationships with local law enforcement. Each district that's here with us today is in a little bit of a different situation in terms of their location. Talk about the relationships that you each have with your local law enforcement in plans if in a situation would develop.
So we're a rather large geographical district, but our partnership with our local police, our schools are housed in Caddis, and the Harrison County Sheriff, it really couldn't be better. So we employ 3 school resource officers in our building, all provided by the Harrison County Sheriff's Office. So they're really integral in what we do and how we communicate our message. Earlier this year, we had a partnership with the Ohio EMA and the Harrison County EMA and put together a threat assessment training exercise where we pulled resources together, the State Patrol, local agencies, local law enforcement, first responders, and really went through an exercise of what it would look like in the event that there's an emergency within our school or within our county and how we would adjust. So certainly a powerful exercise that we went through, and Bill, you're right. If you don't practice it, then you don't know how to respond or anticipate a major challenge to the security of the school. So for us, it was extremely beneficial.
We see that distance and the geographical locations being a thing, and so some opt to have a resource officer in the school. Some, by way of House Bill 99, allows teachers or staff to become armed. Talk about how each of your districts stands. I know, Edison, that's something you guys have ventured towards recently.
Yeah, so same scenario. Like our Board of Education has kind of put safety as a top priority based on the simple fact of the unknown factor of how long it's going to take somebody to get there. So, we have a school resource officer in every building, so that gives us our first layer of protection. Obviously, we have our armed staff in every building, which gives us a second layer of protection. So, it's important for that to be in place for us, just to have a little bit of safety and to be able to maybe potentially thwart, stop a threat that occurs or an active shooter that occurs and minimize, mass casualties if something were like that to ever happen. So I just think from the fact of, being 208 square miles and not knowing what we're facing, I think that if something were to happen, I'm sure not only Jefferson County, but any county available and all the law enforcement agencies that are there, somebody's going to respond as fast as they can, I would assume, in a situation like that.
So from our school location, very very similarly. So our two largest law enforcement agencies are just a couple of minutes away, if a couple of minutes away. Very very lucky in terms of having them nearby, and so our board is very gracious to set up the three school resource officer funding positions in coordination with the Harrison County Sheriff. They're on our campus daily. We secure additional coverage in the morning when students are coming to school, and I really think communicating that the resource officers in our one building are all there. They're actively moving throughout the building, both inside and out, and the additional security that we pick up as students are arriving in the morning with their parents or by bus really affords us pretty decent coverage on the school campus, and we're pretty dedicated to being able to provide our skilled personnel to deal with any situation that might pop up.
How's the response been from staff to possibly take this on? I know some of you have people who are willing to do it. Are there others who are like, that's not for me, that's not what I'm here to do?
And I just to piggyback off of what TC said, the commitment that they make, and this is all volunteer, and there's no additional compensation for anybody that does this. We pay for all the training, we pay for all the ammunition, that they have to train with, but this is at zero compensation to them on top of it. So obviously, when you commit to something like that, you're committing because you care about what you do, and you want to make sure that everybody that's in your buildings are, that they're safe.
Yeah, I think I would add in our professional collaboration and communication, just the ability to have our resources so close and depend on our local law enforcement through the police and sheriff, and having them in the building with the number that we have in the building. That's where we landed in terms of the comfort of protecting our school and making sure it's a secure environment. So our teachers, in this perspective, they're focusing on academics, they're focusing on teaching, and we're very blessed to be able to have an arrangement set up that way.
Let's talk about funding. In the State House last week passed the state budget, operating budget for the next fiscal year. However, with that comes almost, I believe it was $50 million committed to school safety if it gets through the Senate come July. Talk about what this money can be most useful for your districts when it becomes if it becomes available.
So the one piece that I initially saw in the proposed budget was funding for school resource officers. But when the revision was sent back out, I didn't see that component in there. Not saying that it wasn't there. I really didn't look any deeper to see if it was or not. But I mean, any amount of money that we can get in the district to upgrade, what we already have in place is a huge plus. And what that upgrade becomes, I don't know that. And I guess to piggyback there, the Safer Watch. I don't know how aware you are of the Safer Watch initiative that Rob Harrington from 911 and Sheriff Abdullah are currently working on. But there's a component there that's going to kind of change what's happening in Jefferson County, just based on the fact of what he's going to come in and do, which is just put new cameras in where needed. Those cameras are going to be a 911 live feed from the buildings. There's a new app. We currently are using an app, but there's a new app that they're going to roll out that's going to give you the opportunity to have it at your fingertips to notify law enforcement if something happens to cut down on the response time. So I'm really kind of excited to see how that ends up, and the goal of that is to get that rolled out and ready to go for August of 23.
I think it's completely fair to say, obviously, funding helps. So it helps with any initiative that we might have, or any trend that might pop up that we would need to counter in any way. So funding helps us to move quickly and make actionable changes, and our students and our teaching and support staff and community can see that we're making a difference, that we're utilizing funding and paying attention. And so just as a quick example for us, so this summer we're installing 2 completely remote access gates to close off rear access to our school. So it will function in the same way that the vestibules work, in that there's no access at all unless there's communication established by our office. So certainly an expensive project, and something that we hope that many schools will be able to do, but funding certainly is the issue.
It's definitely not a case. A lot of people say, "Oh, we're just throwing money at a problem." This is a long-term investment. Any funding that can be acquired. Well, you bring up a good point with that, because a lot of students, in today's age, after COVID-19, with mental health struggles, stuff like that, they might need that person to go to. Do you see that those interactions daily in the schools between a resource officer and the students?
Yeah, absolutely. So since the inception of our school as Harrison Central, we've been lucky to have a steady as a school resource officer that's still with us. So just to watch him and the relationships that he builds with students, and as a means of helping students, number one, but also discovering information that might be beneficial in terms of school operation or school safety. They're really priceless. They're really priceless.
Let's talk about a little bit about mental health, and then we'll kind of go around the table and see if anyone has anything to add. Mental health has become a focal point of schools and students. It was before, but COVID-19, a lot of people would say the pandemic has heightened that. What are some initiatives, some things for students that are currently being offered, or you might be working on to kind of help combat that issue?
Well, we have clinical counselors in our buildings 5 days a week. So again, we've made the commitment. The Board of Education made the commitment, knowing that mental health was very, very important, especially since the pandemic. To make that commitment. So our hopes is to expand that a little bit more in a 23-24 school year, to not only have the ability to offer the individual counseling. Right now at the high school, we do offer a day treatment program, which is like a 2.5-hour intense counseling program for small groups of people. We hope to expand that, maybe into the elementaries, and maybe even expand it and have a male and a female group at the high school. It's something we don't have. I mean, it's probably on top of school safety. I think mental health has probably become one of the top priorities that we have to address. It's just because of the severe need that's kind of exposed itself over the last 3 years.
Yeah, and it seems that that's common for all of us. The mental health therapist, our counselors, outside service that comes in. I think what I see really is that it's more than the problem has grown to more than just the caseload that those folks can handle. So then it's reaching out and providing support to our teachers and our support staff and families ultimately as needs pop up, and we're tasked with dealing with supporting these children in the classrooms on cases that might not elevate to a therapist need, or perhaps a family's not able to access a therapist if that's their choosing. So I think that's where it's grown. So certainly over the last few years, I totally agree. That's what we're looking at, and just a continual review and continual support that we provide, and initiatives that are positive to highlight student achievement, student engagement, really make a difference in a student's life positively.
I did want to ask one other thing that I kind of glanced over. We have a fair amount of elected officials in the area that are passionate or have some type of tie to safety. What are some of the conversations that you have with them about possible strategies or solutions, ways to gain more funding, and are they receptive to a lot of the ideas?
Yeah, on the elected official side for Harrison Hills, so certainly all are lend a listening ear and are very cooperative in terms of collaborating with us. So we're a little unique. One of our state legislators is actually a teacher that was a teacher at Harrison Central High School for a good number of years. So he lives in our community. He understands our community. We talk frequently, in terms of advocating for what it is that we need or that schools need in this region of Ohio. We couldn't have a better champion in terms of advocating and in helping us out. So we're certainly proud of the efforts that our state legislators put forth on behalf of the public school system in Harrison County, and it's a continual basis. It's a communication ongoing.
No, I think that's spot on. And to elaborate on the question, when the initial biennium budget came out, I did reach out to to both Senator Hoagland and House Representative Ferguson to share my concerns specifically with the school resource officer component of the funding, and TC alluded to it. It's when they're taking the formula being, what your state share index is for your district, that was a very minimal amount of dollars for Edison Local, and TC hit the nail right on the head. I mean, you're providing funding to school districts that have the ability to have either, county law enforcement, city police departments, state highway patrol, at their fingertips, to be there if a situation happens, versus providing very minimal amount of money and funding to districts. And when I had a conversation with House Rep Ferguson, he understood it and said, I definitely will be talking with some of the Southeast Ohio reps as well that have the rural areas to try to make them understand. So to the point, again, that TC made, that piece of the component of the biennium budget fall to this, to the wayside, based on the fact that the funding probably wasn't, the way they were going to fund it probably wasn't the best way to go about it.
I think that I'll just add one thing. I think that you'll see. So our law enforcement has access to our security cameras also, like you're referring to. So just the process of educating the access of the footage for the 911, like you say, it makes you better. So just the depth of conversation that you have with your first responders, your law enforcement, your school resource officers, really everybody, in terms of where a camera is located, where a hallway is, where a door is, that the door numbers are communicated properly, the building wings are communicated properly. Really, you get into the weeds pretty in depth, and making a school system safer. Just engaging in that process of conversation is it's rewarding.
It's interesting. You each mentioned a different branch, whether it be of law enforcement or elected officials. It truly is a team effort to try and put these plans together. It doesn't fall just on the school board, just on the superintendent, just on the staff. It's a community, county-wide, region-wide, including everyone, effort. So it's good to hear that that's being worked on. I think that's important to get that message out, that's going on. So let's wrap up with just kind of going around. I want to kind of open the floor for anything that maybe we missed, or maybe a topic or a point that someone would want to make that wasn't brought up.
I'm just very appreciative of the commitment that Sheriff Abdullah Jr. has made to school safety. He was passionate and committed prior to becoming the sheriff, and Fred Sr. was also passionate about it. But I think what Fred Jr. is bringing to the table is like we're going to the next level with this, because it was a huge commitment of his, not only from the fact of working with 911 and the county commissioners to roll out this new Safer Watch program and giving access to 911 of live feed of what you have going on in the building, to actually him coming in with his SWAT team, to actually train with our people that are concealed carry in our building, because obviously if a situation occurs, I think that not only the sheriff's department, potentially the SWAT team, but our people that are armed as well in the buildings are going to have to be able to work together at some point. So I appreciate the commitment from the county. I appreciate the commitment from the sheriff, and I appreciate what Rob Harrington has done to really get this initiative rolling.
Yeah, so I would add, really, I think that we're all better by having conversations like this, engaging in this talk, whether it be at a superintendent level or a school official level, or within the school community. Certainly a number of players that make it happen and ensure the safety of our schools and our students for us at Harrison. Likewise, Sheriff Myers and Harrison County and his dedication to being able to staff positions in our building to make the SRO positions function the way that they should. Certainly not an easy task these days to provide that staffing, and certainly appreciative of his efforts. And from our board's perspective, monthly as we meet, we've added a agenda item every month where we talk about school safety. It's continually reviewed. I think the point of this conversation and the point of our conversation is that it's not just when something or if something happens or if something is alleged to happen. It's just the preparedness, the conversation, the depth of conversation, and really you're ready to go in the event that there's some type of situation that needs addressed. So very thankful on Harrison's side for all of our stakeholders, from teachers all the way through our chief law enforcement officer in making it happen.
That's all the time we have for today. I would like to thank TC, Scott, Bill, and Duran for joining us. I also want to thank Dr. Chuck Kakaiko of the Jefferson County Education Services Center for allowing us to use the conference room here today, but also allowing us to get together to have this conversation and helping us organize that. The conversation will continue as the crisis in the classroom continues, but we will pause there for now.